Hi, I'm Kyle.
I'm Josh.
This is Two Guys, One Car.
Welcome to our car.
Dude, it starts with Two Guys, One Car. That's the name. It should start
It's
with
welcome
the
to our car.
name. No, but it has to start with Two Guys, One Car because that's the name of the thing.
Just get in the back seat.
Ride along with us.
All right, let's get started, dude.
Kick her off.
All right, we're back again today, guys. What we're going to do today is get to know a little bit about each other. This will be part 1 of 2. So today I'm going to sit here and interview Josh. I'm going to ask a couple of questions and basically interview him about his life so far up to 22. But this is part 1 and Josh will do me in the next episode. But we're going to see how that goes and see where the conversation takes us. We don't want it to go too far. Like, we could honestly sit here and talk for
Forever.
hours about this, especially when you start breaking down periods of time. I was thinking about this when I was looking at what I'm going to ask you. There's so many things you could ask and so many layers you can uncover and just keep going deeper and deeper.
A lot of specifics.
And then on top of that, the conversation that gets started from that, so it's just even deeper than that. And you can find out things about each other that you didn't even know about yourself. So it's we could just go on forever, but we've sort of both outlined some stuff that we do want to ask, and we'll just let it naturally flow. The way I've set it up and how I want to sort of ask you questions is I want to sort of do it linearly, because what we're trying to do is obviously get to know a bit more about each other anyway, ourselves, but then also any viewers, so they have some context and background to why we're here and how have we ended up in this moment in this car doing this pod. It's how did we even get here? We want to give some context, because me and Josh were actually talking about this, but most pods that you listen to, you always really want to know more about the people you're listening to. And I don't know if there's something about that where, because there's no episode where they give context to themselves, that's why you want it, or if there was, I'd be satisfied. I don't know, but we thought there's a lot of people we'd like to do this, so why wouldn't we do it? So like I said, I want to start it off in a linear order with you. So some of the first things I wanted to ask you is about your preteen childhood. So I thought about doing it in a 0 to 5, 5 to 12, but when you're 0 to 5, it's kind of blended from when you're early, primary school and stuff.
Yeah, I would say 0 to 12 is freaking all the same for me.
That's exactly. So preteen, so 0 to 12. So one of the first things for context is a basic question, where did you grow up and where did you go to school?
Sydney, grew up in Terry Hills, lived there my whole life. And
have you lived in your house?
Yeah.
Your whole life?
Same house my entire life.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a lot of people, I always thought that was normal. But as I've grown older, so many people I know have just moved all over.
I thought not to be but I have been in different houses, but I've been in one house for majority of being conscious, you know what I mean? From your teens up until now. And I thought I was weird. You've had one house your whole life, so you only know that setting. One room.
Yeah.
One room. That's
yeah,
so
no,
weird.
or 2 rooms. But yeah, I was listening to Steve-O from Jackass talk, and he grew up in 5 different countries, which is mental. But yeah, it's amazing how many people have actually lived in different countries and grew up in all different houses. I've lived in the same house. I was bunking with my sister when I was younger. We shared the same room, had 2 bunk beds in there, or 1 bunk bed, 1 bed each, if that makes sense. And then, it was funny. I took, because she's older than me, obviously, and she took the bigger room when she was a teenager, and then she was out of school, and I was going, I think, into year 10 or year 11. And I was like, oh, Mum, I want the bigger room because I really want to do well and try hard at school. And I think that space would be great. So,
is that a lie?
No, genuinely.
That's what you were thinking?
I was actually thinking that at the time. And it made sense to Mum, made sense to everyone. Obviously, my sister wasn't happy about it, but I ended up getting the bigger room. And then...
Wait, so you haven't been in that room your whole time?
I only moved in that room when I was 16, 17.
That's so weird. Well, I wouldn't have been to your house when we would have first met until later on.
Oh, yeah, so I got the room, and then year 11 I dropped out of school. It's funny, my sister's still salty about it, as in she takes the piss with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just funny because she now has a small room and I have a massive room that I don't use the space of.
That's so funny.
we're just not going to move back because that's a lot of effort.
Yeah. So you grew up in Terry Hills in Sydney, so up on the hill, and you went to school there as well.
Yeah, Terry Hills Public School, primary school. That was me from K to 6.
Yeah. And in terms of that, like, what was primary school like for you?
It was a great time. It was a very small school. We had, I think, in year 6 we had 34 kids in my year. I think there was about 200 in the whole school. It fluctuated a little bit, but it held around those numbers. Very small school, very big and open. A lot of like bush, a lot of land to play on. Super grateful for my time there. It was I had a really close circle of friends. It was fun. I think kind of the key takeaways that I get from school was the kind of quiet confidence I have within myself and belief that I can do a lot of things, I think came from school. Like my earliest memories of kind of having this sense of confidence was like in swimming, athletics, cross country. Like I'm no great swimmer or runner or anything, but like competing in such a small competition pool, like I was good and I would win a lot of the races and stuff. And I think just winning year after year gave me a lot of confidence. So yeah, that's a big takeaway that I have from school. And then just the memories of adventure. Being so young, you're just so curious, and my school kind of offered the ability for you to explore that curiosity. We would like go in the bush and build bases and have rock walls, and you'd get in trouble, but it was pretty chill for the most part.
It's so memorable to you. It's very evident that it's memorable to you because there's times where we're working at your house and your school's like just down the road. That's another thing as well. Your school was like right next to your house when you were young, so you'd walk to and from school in this like little world of yours, like right next to each other. But you've taken me to your primary school, like on the weekend when no one's there, and we're just walking around. You're like showing me spots of your primary school, which is so cool.
Which I really love doing that now that I'm older, going back there like on weekends when no one's there and just reminiscing and like reliving all these moments, all these memories, because those really are the shaping grounds. You spend so much time at school.
It's so funny, like when you're young and you're in primary school, you're always thinking about what it's going to be like when you're adult, and you're like, I want to be an adult, like I want my own time and whatnot. And now we're adults, we're like, wow, primary school was so free, like you got to do whatever you wanted and like own your own little world, and you had no worries. And like going back there would be like a really like eye-opening thing.
For sure. Yeah, it was fun. I don't know, I was a pretty good student. I got up to like a bit of mischief and stuff here and there, but for the most part I was always quite like try hard. I like to do well, and I think the motivator for me was fear of consequence. For me not to do well, for me to misbehave, the consequences, I hated the thought of getting in trouble, and I still don't like it to this day when I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing. That conviction has always weighed so heavily on me. So that's quite a big, I guess, motivator for what I do in life, is just wanting to avoid that heavy sense of conviction. Yeah.
And do you have any like really strong moments or memories like from primary school that like come to your mind if you're thinking about like your best times there?
Just hanging out with like the guys, the TTT boys, as we called them.
TTT boys.
Yeah.
What does that stand for?
So Turning 10 Tour. So one of my mate's dads.
Turning 10 Tour.
So.
Oh wait, I know about this. Yeah.
There's 3 sons. And for each of the kids' birthdays, when they turn 10, the dad would take him and his mates. They could either go, I think it was to Stradbroke Island, or they could go like somewhere in Australia. And their grandfather had a house on North Stradbroke Island. And my mate was the youngest of the 3, and it ended up being like Turning 12 Tour, because we went like 2 years later or something, which was kind of better because you're older and just you understand a bit more and have a bit more freedom. So we went to North Stradbroke Island. We got like t-shirts made up, TTT Tour.
No way.
And it was just so fun. Like those guys really made my childhood, and it was some of the best times of my life. So just memories, laughing with them. We'd play tip, build bases, have wars. It was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. There's also another moment, actually, now that I think about it, that coming back to the confidence thing, installed that in me. It's amazing how the mind just remembers really random scenarios. But we were in year 1, and I went to the other year 1 class because we had to merge for whatever reason on that day. And the teacher was like, I want everyone to, Miss Wilson, I want everyone to draw a heart, like a human heart, on their notebook. And there was 26 of us, I believe. Went around and I was the last person that she looked at. So she started like this way and then went around that way. Every single person drew a love heart, and I drew like what a heart is, like a obscure random shape. I was the only person in the whole class that did it. And obviously she made like a standpoint to note that I did it right. And it's those moments where it's so uncomfortable because everyone's looking at you like, oh, you weirdo, like you got it right or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's those moments that have always, I think at least, that I attribute to me just feeling like, yeah, I can do it. So yeah, I have a lot of good memories from that school.
And you speak about like a time where I can't remember exactly what time period where, and like we'll probably get into it later, but like you had like a real like anxious patch of like, and do you feel like maybe some of those things you took from primary school like got you out of that, or like those like almost just you'd have those wins and what you were talking about just before, it's like maybe you like rediscover that later on like through your teens and like that confidence? Yeah,
the confidence really, which I've spoken about before, came through Macca's, working there.
Yes.
That's what sort of changed everything.
Yeah.
I think the anxiety was kind of always there. It's still prevalent to an extent, but I'm just very good at overcoming it and not letting it rule me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't say the events in primary school had a massive impact on that.
Because it's almost like you had like some of those like confidence wins, but then you like had lost those and like maybe you got a little bit more anxious and like you forget about those times where it's a lot simpler and stuff.
For sure.
What's something that you were like super afraid of as a child? And I'm talking like before like high school type thing.
The dark.
The dark?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Terrified of the dark.
Really? Did you used to have like night lights and shit like that?
Yeah, I had a nightlight, but it was more the imagination. Like I don't think it's a fear of the dark. It's a fear of your imagination almost. And
it's fear of unknown almost, because in the dark you can't see, meaning that you don't know what's there.
Yeah.
Meaning your imagination kicks off.
Yeah, it's just your imagination. That's really where the fear is, because it's not the thought of I don't know what's under my bed. It's the thought of I'm imagining there's a monster under my bed or there's someone under my bed. So that was really the fear. Like, and the dark is what kind of triggers that imagination to get real dark and crazy. But yeah, that was probably like one of the biggest fears. And the other fear was just constantly thinking that people are looking at me, like judging me. And I always had to wear like branded clothes. I always had to, have all the cool stuff because I was just so afraid of what people would think of me if I was wearing like a Kmart t-shirt or something.
We were talking about this the other day. Like, it's not funny, but it is. But like, you were saying how like you like had to, like there was no way that you couldn't. And like when you say have to, like I had to, but like not as much. But you're saying like you just wouldn't wear anything that wasn't like it was a must.
I couldn't. I would force Mum to get me the things I wanted. I couldn't go without. I had to have it. And it was not like, it's funny, it's not out of ego, it was just out of fear of being judged and not being cool. And your friends, because kids are so mean. That's one thing I realized as I'm older. Like, I was such a rude person in primary school, and I think a lot of kids are so rude because they just don't understand to the full extent, like feelings and what to say, what not to say. So kids are brutal. If you rock up in a Kmart t-shirt, you're the laughing stock. Like, everyone is laughing at you. Everyone's like commenting on that. And whether that's true, when I say everyone, like all it takes is one person, and in your mind you're convinced everyone thinks that.
And it's funny because like kids don't, like you're saying, kids are so horrible. Like when you're laughing at someone else, you don't even really have that much like meaning behind it. It's almost just like you're just laughing at them because everyone else is. And then the person who's getting laughed at feels it tenfold.
It's
like,
huge.
The times where, like you were saying before about how like you were different or something, or like you get called out by the teacher or something, it is actually like, it's heartbreaking. Like when you're a kid, you're so rocked by it, and everyone else doesn't even take that much notice. Like, oh, he's in trouble. Anyway, back to what I'm doing. Like no one takes any notice and it's over. But for that person,
it's all in your head.
When you're a young kid, you just go home and like you're just pondering over it. You just have the worst afternoon. You're just so rude to your parents. You just hate everything that's going on because it just cannot get it out of your head. You just feel emotion so much more when you're a kid. Like you have no coping mechanisms because you haven't been through anything yet. So it's almost like you just go, you're just stuck in that emotion because you don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, you have nothing to refer back to no experiences.
The
to
cookies
pull
in the
on.
jar.
Yeah, so, but yeah, kids are brutal, man.
Yeah,
Kids are
100%. Is there any like memorable vacations that you had when you were a young kid? I know a lot of people talk about that. Well, you did just say the TTT boys.
The TTT tour, for sure. I would have to say, like, we went to a lot of caravan parks when we were younger. Like mum and dad and my sister, a couple of other families. They were just great times living, like, you know, the caravan park layout, how it's like, there's the roads within the caravan park and you'd ride your bikes and you feel like you're riding on the road, and it has like the bigger rainbow balloon bouncy.
Castles, whatever they're called.
It's a must. Is it even a caravan park if it doesn't have the balloon
Yeah.
pillow thing?
So all those are so much fun. I'd say probably the most memorable, which funnily enough, it ends up being like the bigger holidays, but Fiji, when I was 8 years old, that was such a good time with my cousins and like my family. It was so much fun. And I'd say going to Harvey Bay and Port Douglas with dad, that was a great trip. When we that was 2 separate trips, but just going north with dad for like a fishing trip was so much fun. Saw like Mosman Gorge. It was a great bonding time and just really good fishing. And I really loved that.
Is that when you were really young?
No, I was, that's actually older, to skip your chapters. I think I was 15 or 16.
Okay, yeah.
It was cool because I felt like a little bit of independence. I think that was one of the first times I brought my laptop with me, and I like we're in the resort, and I just remember like being like, oh, I'm just going to go by the pool. And I just went there by myself, and dad wasn't there, and I just was on my laptop talking to my friends on Messenger or whatever it was. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. Like, I'm getting older. I'm an adult type, that kind of feeling. Just felt good.
So what was your, before we go on to like teenager type years, like what was your you kind of touched some of them, but what was your upbringing like with your mum, dad and your sister?
Yeah, it was interesting. Very grateful. Like, I love my family so much. My sister and I always used to fight when we were younger. Just,
There's a gap between you and Chloe as well, like 3 years?
yeah, 2.5, 3 years.
Which is like opinion, but it's just like you're the same but not, so it's like it's relatable but it's also not, so it's kind of, but you're both going through like the same mood stages, if that makes sense.
But you really want to chime in as the younger sibling. You think it's cool to be older, so she would do things and I would like chime in on those, but I'd never done them, or I couldn't relate to them, but I wanted to be a part of it, and I was close enough where I felt like I could. And then you'd almost use them as like a bragging right, or something they would talk about. Like, you would bring that to your friends and be like, oh, like my 14-year-old sister was talking about this stuff, and you'd just kind of leech off them a bit, which I don't know. I'd like to ask her how she found that, because I would find that freaking annoying if my younger sibling was doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Like, we were, as I said, we fought a lot early on. Our relationship's probably, like, we've always been close. We've always like had a good relationship, but I'd say the past like year and a half, 2 years has really brought us together. Made us like much closer.
Yeah.
In terms of mum and dad, mum and I have a good relationship. It's always, it's always been good. I feel like when I was going through puberty and stuff, and like any teenager, you kind of just,
You just rebel against it.
yeah, you just rebel. It's kind of a natural thing that occurs. So that time was tough, I guess. But yeah, and then dad and I, we always used to butt heads heaps. We still do to an extent, but when I was younger, it was really bad. I'm super stubborn, he's super stubborn, just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
So we'd always clash. I think as I've gotten older and like more mature, we've kind of managed to work around that. I say it's not where I want it to be, the relationship, but like I do try to actively work on that.
So what about it is not what you want?
I'd say just probably like the friend thing, like, and when I say friend thing, you know, when people, you're like, oh, I don't know, like my dad's my best friend, or like you have that partner, like your girlfriend's your best friend, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I just want my dad to be my best friend. Like, I want to go and, I don't know, go for walks with him and do this with him, and
Gotcha.
like I want to have that friendship as well as like father-son relationship.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're just a bit different in terms of what we like, and like it's fine, you don't have to like what the other person likes, but yeah, at some point there would have to be compromise, which maybe either of us aren't willing to make to the full extent.
You said you're both very stubborn. Yeah, which is interesting.
But yeah, no, it's definitely something that I seek, I guess.
Do you feel like as you get older that gets better?
For sure.
Because you start having more common interests.
More common interest, a better ability to communicate, and you also get clarity on what matters, and it's not staying stubborn, staying in your lane and not giving in. It's adapting and changing to get the product, which is a beautiful relationship. So yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah, definitely. How old are your parents again?
Actually don't know. Mum's like 54, 55, dad's like 53.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, like
that
mid-50s.
that I've been thinking too. It's like there is really a point. I don't know who I heard this from, but there's a point in your life where your parents are your parents, right? So they look after you, they bring you into the world. But there's a point where like they're bringing you into the world, and there's a point where that switches from when you're now the carer. So they care for you from 0 to whatever age it may be. For some people, they care for you up until you're 45. Some people, they care and look after you and are the carer role until 18 or maybe even 16 for some people. But like there is this weird like
It's a
transition between like now you care for them as well. And there's actions that you do that you're the one in control. And that is a weird like period to be a part of, you know. And as our parents get older into their 70s, 80s, like that's going to be a thing. And that's going to be interesting to feel at. And it is weird. And like you live at home as well still. It is weird when you're an adult and you live at home with your parents. It is very different because you're trying to live an adult life. But I don't know about you, but like for me, it's like I'm like with Finn. It's like you still have the younger brother. So there's still a kid in the house. So it's like you're also a kid, but it's like not a kid. You know what I mean? So it's like...
I'm a kid, but I'm not a kid. No, I get that. I do think that my relationship would be a lot better with my parents if I didn't live at home. But...
Because you'd be more intentional with what you do.
Yeah, you'd be more intentional because it turns from just seeing them and living amongst them to actually wanting to see them. Like we see each other every night because we live in the same house. Doesn't mean we actually want to get home and hang out and talk. Like there's plenty of times where no one says a word to each other. You just exist. Like I go to the kitchen, make my dinner, and then go to my room, eat it, and go to bed. Like you just exist in the same space. But I think when you move out, again, deprive yourself of anything and like you don't know what you've got till it's gone kind of 100%. Thing. Once you're not living with them, then you're like, oh, I actually love them and want to see them.
I feel like that's also very difficult to be able to obtain when you're at home. Like even if you put all your effort and energy into trying to realize what you have while it's there, you're just not.
Everyone takes it for granted.
Yeah.
So I would like to move out, to be honest, but just financially it doesn't make sense. Like I am very grateful that I live at home rent free. I'm super grateful for that. Yeah. And given that I only work like 2-3 days a week, it's not sustainable. Doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So moving on from 0 to 12, like we've got a little bit of information from that, going into your teenage years, the rat bag years, and your teenage years are very different to mine. So it's different and similar, like obviously us meeting in that time. But off the bat, where did you go to high school?
I went to Covenant Christian for 7 weeks and then moved to Davidson High School from 7 to 11.
Yeah. So 7 to 11. Off the top, what are 3 stories or experiences from your high school that are most memorable?
That's a great question. 3 stories or experiences. That's one of them. That's a freaking good question. I'd have to say... that. That's funny. I don't know if I want to say that.
Just say it.
Yeah, okay, no. The first one, so this is just like off the cuff, but as you know, I'm so competitive. Yeah. And I'll do anything to win. Besides, I do cheat sometimes in board games and stuff. That was a trait I had when I was younger. I was so bad at cheating. I would always cheat in board games. Yeah, because I thought, fair play, if I can cheat and win, then...
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Bro, you're evil.
No,
that's like, and I'm talking like bottom of the bucket, like you're that. Yeah. Like that's cheating in a board game.
Was that. I don't do that anymore. I'm very good at like, if I lose in those things, I just don't put that much into it anymore. Yeah. But before I would attach like my feelings, my happiness, everything to winning anything. So keep that in mind. There's this game called Mat Hockey. Too hard to explain what it is, or not too hard, but I'm not going to. and we're playing it in PE, and there's basically, you have like, I think it's 6 teams. Each team has about like 5-6 people on it, like a whole class is involved, and it's every team for themselves, but you can work together to eliminate other teams, but ultimately, like, you're all there for yourself. You want your team to win. And I'm very good at getting, in those situations, I'm very good at getting people to trust me and abide like by me and make an ally to eliminate. And I don't know why it is. I think I'm just a trustworthy guy naturally, but I've definitely burned a lot of relationships in this game. And so basically I made an ally with my mate Adam Wild, and to take out this team. And as soon as I needed him, like, I'm very good at realizing it's going to get to a point where, okay, if we take these people out, it's going to be me and him, and like, he's a good player, so there's a chance he might beat me. And yes, there's a chance anyone might, but I know that I have better odds at beating someone who's not as good. Yeah.
So you do the simple math, you take the odds.
So as soon as I'm done with him, see Adam, boom, take him out. And I'll never forget, it was, he was out, left his mat exposed, and I had the puck, and he's looking at me like waiting for me to hit the person, and I just switched stance and freaking hit his mat, and his face, dude.
Pure betrayal.
Pure betrayal. And he's the same as me, really competitive. And that was like game over. It was like,
and that's transcended over years of your relationship. Yeah.
And he just carried that chip for so long.
That's so funny.
And it was went on to win the game, but it was so funny in that moment. Like, that memory, we always laugh about it today. So that was definitely one of them. Another one, which I don't know, still don't know if I'll put this in. I probably will. But like, as soon as I moved, there was a girl that I had a crush on. And I remember getting like, it was her birthday, and I wrote like a note and put like $30 in it, which for me at the time was like so much money. And I wanted to like put it in her bag while she was in class, so she would get home and see it, because I like hated the whole doing in-person confrontation. Like,
wait, was your name on the note?
Yeah.
Like, it was from you. It was addressed from JV's.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then I remember I snuck out of class 3 times and went up, because I knew where her class was and where her bag was 3 times, and I went to put it in, but I couldn't bear the thought, because I was overthinking too much of like, oh, what happens if she doesn't see it, or what happens if she comes and tells people at school and then they all laugh at me. Like, I was just so afraid of the what ifs that I never.
But how old were you? 13?
I was, like, I think 13, 14, like year 7 or 8. Just the fear of the what ifs. I never put that note in. But then, like, now we're really good friends, and I gave her the note, like, a while ago.
Really?
I think I sent her a photo of it when I was cleaning my room out or something.
And you still had the note. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
So funny.
That has to be in the pod. Yeah. That's great. That's not even that weird. You showed her the note.
Yeah.
That's not weird.
But yeah, I can't remember if I told her the backstory to it all.
Oh, okay.
I think I might have just said, I wrote this for you, but bro, I remember I was like, it was science, and I was out, and I like went to her bag, and I was like, I like
fully
shaking.
I pulled her stuff out and put it in, and I was like, I can't do it. Pulled it out.
Oh my God.
Back down, came back up, and was like, no, I want to do it.
Were you guys close? Like,
we were good friends. And I'd told her I liked her, and then she told me like that she didn't. She did the classic like, oh, that's so sweet or something.
Oh, you're such a good friend.
Yeah, no, like saying, trying to say I don't like you without saying I don't like you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's a good memory. And there has to be, bro, there's so many. Another one was there was this kid in my year. He was such a rat bag, funny guy though, but he was always getting in trouble, and he stole a knife from I think it was timber or like metalwork, like a Stanley knife, and like the deputy got called, and they always had like mad beef. They were always like yelling back and forth at each other. And it got to the point the deputy was literally on foot chasing him around the school.
My gosh.
And I just remember like him running past me, like the guy. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I stole a knife from here. This guy's chasing me. And then I just look up, and like there's this massive quadrant upstairs. So you can see like, I don't know, 50, 60 meters away. And the deputy's there and just yells this kid's name like, oh mate, like stop. And then he just like took off. And it was one of those things where you're walking by and you're like the moments happened, and then you're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
And I'm like, that didn't just happen.
What the hell?
Yeah, so that was a
That's
classic.
so
That was a
funny.
funny memory that just stays in my mind. And there's heaps of them,
Mm.
but those are probably three funny ones.
Mm. And like a big thing in your teen years is like most people, well not most people, but a lot of people start to work. And I know we've actually in a lot of pods, we've actually got hours of like talking about like our initial jobs, and like we base a lot of our stuff off like our initial work. But what was that like for you entering the workforce? Like you've told me, but maybe speak on that. Like when did you start the paper run?
Yeah, so I started the paper on, I think I was in year 4, so 10 years old. So that was great, and this is one thing I'm super grateful for, that Mum encouraged us, and I don't want to say forced us, but forced us to do it. She never forced us to do anything, but really encouraged us, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 5 days a week, getting up at 5 a.m, 4:30 a.m. to go and deliver papers. And bro, middle of winter, when you're 10 years old, getting up at 5 a.m, like that is the last thing you want to be doing. But I'm super glad that we did that. And then from there, I think I was about 14 when I started working at Hills, which is a flower shop near my house. I worked there and pretty much compacted cardboard and sweeped up flower offcuts, threw them in the bin, and then cleaned a cafe when it was closed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the cafe and the flower shop are owned by the same owner. Would clean that, and then that was my shift. The shift was 2.5 hours. I got paid $8 an hour, so I was getting $20 a shift, and it was never more than 2.5 hours work, because that's all it took to do the job. And I'd only work like twice a week. So, and you could choose when you wanted to get paid. So I would always hold off for like 7-8 weeks, just so I could get like a lump sum and be like, oh, it's a bit of money versus getting, $20, $40 a week.
And it's not like at 14 you're spending that money. Like you're barely spending that on anything.
Exactly. So that was kind of the entry, I guess, into the workforce, doing the pamphlets as well for my local IGA. I took that on, and I got severely underpaid. $50 to do the whole of Terry Hills, which is 800 plus pamphlets, would take me 5, 6, 7 hours sometimes.
You get $50.
Yeah.
$50.
Yeah. It was not worth it.
How long did you do that for?
I did that for a while.
Oh my gosh.
Like good 5-6 months, and then the paper run was like years. But the pamphlets, because the paper run got discontinued, so we lost our job. And we were doing pamphlets and the paper run at the time, and then when the paper run got discontinued, I took on the pamphlet solo, and it was just so much work for just no money.
Nothing.
But I kept doing it.
Because it was like routine or something.
Yeah.
It was routine. I also liked the fact, part of me liked that I didn't like doing it. I think I always had that natural seeking discomfort from an early age. But then it was Macca's that really changed it. So I was working at Hills, not making much money. Mum had always tried to get me to work at Macca's. Our neighbours worked there, said what a great job it was. And I was just in the mindset of like, oh, I never want to work at Macca's. That's such a lame job. Every 14-year-old thinks that way. But Mum actually just signed me up for it and like put me through it. Went to the interview and then got the job, and then that's where we met at the group interview. Although not group interview, the orientation. And that's where everything changed. Like, we've spoken a lot about it, but that's where like all the confidence came. That's where my understanding of not worrying about what people think changed. Just skills in terms of like work ethic was really solidified. I always had it. Like, I had it in the paper and I had it in the pamphlets, had it at the flower shop, but it was never recognized because, there's really no boss around. No one was telling me to sweep up the flowers. I was just doing it. Mum wasn't going to praise me on delivering papers, but it was at Macca's where you start to get recognized for your hard work. And that's where, like, early on, I learned cafe, and then within 6 months was a crew trainer, cross-trained. Just like, you're constantly being recognized for your hard work. So that felt really good, and that had a massive impact on me, where it's like, okay, I can do these things that not everyone's going to see. I can work really hard when no one's watching, but eventually someone will see it and I will get praised and rewarded for
That's
it.
the best thing about it. And that's the argument back at people who say it's like a, entry job, it's like slave labor, kids are young. But it's like, that's the point. It's you work harder, you get paid more. It's like you can climb the ladder. And what's good at Macca's is it's so big that it's so fair. I know that sounds weird, but when you're in like a store, it's like a bigger store, there's 120 people. Like, there's no way those 120 people are all the same. It's going to be tiered. There's going to be like the shittest person and the best person at number one. So there's like a level of tier throughout. And it's so great because, like you were saying, there's no one's going to recognize you at Hills. Like, your mum's not going to praise you for that. But at Macca's, the system is built on that. It's built on a company structure of where if you're good, you get promoted, or you get. It's almost just like essentially you're getting judged on your actions, and you were a hard worker, you were competitive, so you had that chance to actually shine there. And that, like, getting that reward then pushes you further, and it makes you do it even more, and you get addicted to putting out and like working really hard. And then, so from there, like, you'd work those couple of years at Macca's, and then you get to the point where you're about to start year 11. And that's a big phase. Like, in year 10, they start talking about subjects. I remember, like, you have no idea what the hell the HSC is, but your parents tell you it's important. You're like, what is this? And then they start giving you like all the units and your stuff, and you're like, I don't know what to pick. I'm going to be doing this for 2 years. And when you're in school, like, 2 years is a long time. 2 years feels like it's going to be a long time. It feels like forever. So it's like, I have to pick my subjects I'm going to do forever, and you want me to be due in a month? Like, what? So we all get to that stage where we're having to pick those subjects, and you had thought about wanting to do some psychology at uni. So how did you get from, I want to do psychology at uni, to being underneath a car, all greasy, as a mechanic?
Yeah, I was just crossing the road and the car hit me. No, I'm kidding. No, so it was the conversation. I think I've mentioned this before on the pod, but just a quick recap. I was doing work experience at the end of year 10 at the Black Dog Institute, having a conversation with a psychiatrist, and she asked me, what do I want my life to look like? Really made me think about, 10, 20, 30, 40 years into the future. I wake up, it's a Monday morning. What do I want to be doing? What do I want my week to look like? And, as I thought about that, I realized I don't want to have a typical 9 to 5. I don't want to, work 38, 40 hours a week and come home and then take my kids to sport on the weekend. That just doesn't appeal to me. And I realized going to uni for the most part was going to give me that. Doing psychology was going to create that. And like, yes, you could do psychology in a form and not have that lifestyle. But what I was thinking of doing, like clinical, was going to give me that. So I was like, man, I don't want to go to uni. So I'm going to leave school because I don't see the point in staying if I'm not going to go to uni. So was tossing up between like carpentry and mechanics. Ended up being mechanics for no other reason really than I liked timber in school. I loved timber. I actually never did automotive in school. But I found I was never great. And like, I'm not good at, if you have like a square piece of timber, I'm not good at like sanding that or making that into a circle. I'm not good at seeing the circle within the square and like making that a thing. So I think I just chose mechanics. I thought it'd be more interesting as well. At the time, I also had my Land Cruiser, which I bought when I was 16, like just turned 16 and a half. And I was planning on traveling Australia after I'd finished my apprenticeship, and I wanted to know about cars, so I thought I'd do that. And I loved it. I loved the apprenticeship. It was very interesting, very, it was just fun. Like, I learned so much. I loved going to a place every day where I was learning heaps. Like, I was just bombarded with information. Taught me a lot of skills as well. And yeah, I worked a year and a bit of the apprenticeship while still working at Macca's. I was doing Macca's on a Sunday, so I'd work 5 days, and then my Sunday was spent doing Macca's. I did that I think it was a year and a half.
So you held on to that for a long time?
Because it was August 2018 that I finished, and I started my apprenticeship in April 2017. So a year and 4 months that I did that, which now that I think about it, it's a long ass time. Yeah, and then it was kind of, the apprenticeship is a blur almost. It's like those 4.5, 5 years kind of mashed into one. And yeah, and then now we're here, I guess.
Yeah. So what three skills over your teens do you think you've valued or held on to the most moving forward as a young adult today?
That's a good question.
Because there is a small gap. Like, you're only 22, right? But dude, those years out of school, like out of the system,
grows so much.
When you're independent, and you've been independent for longer than anyone else who's been in school, because you left. Yes, you're going to TAFE, you're doing apprenticeship, you have a routine, but it's like once you get your P's, it's kind of like it's like you're in the outside world, right? So
yeah, and there's more to say about having a job versus going to school in terms of like you don't have to show up to either technically, but like it is a law that you have to attend school. So there's more weight on you showing up to school than there is for you going to work. And also I think whilst you're in school, your parents still have that hold on you, at least like the way I felt. And I really noticed a shift of when I was in school, it was like my parents, if I ever didn't want to go to school, my parents made me get up and go to school. If I was ever at like doing my mechanics apprenticeship and didn't want to go, my parents would advise that I go, but they say, you're an adult, like this is your job, you can choose whether you go or not.
Hey.
So they gave me that free will there. So I think it was more like that was a big growth point. But I'd say the three things I really took away through those periods were, I would say leadership. That was something I thoroughly enjoyed and do enjoy. I loved anything leadership in school. It was so much fun. I really love those environments where like I get a chance to be a leader and lead people and teach people, collaborate with people. Leadership, and I think under that is probably going to be a lot in terms of like confidence, problem solving. I'd actually probably put that in a separate thing. Problem solving is something I've taken away through that period. I just learned over the apprenticeship how to solve a problem. Like working on cars every day is like you're just solving problems all day.
It's so noticeable in you. Like it's weird. Like you have this tendency to just like so methodically break down a problem, no matter where it is, what it is, how short it will take, how long it will take. It's just like, right, what are we dealing with? X. What tools do I have to fix it? Y. What do I need to find? Like, what do I need to figure out to fix it? This, let's get to work. Like you're just so methodically doing that. And that's got to be from your apprenticeship.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I attribute that to that, which I love. I love that mindset. It honestly helps in so many things because you kind of allow yourself to just get to ground and realize there has to be a practical approach. And again, using the example of cars is so good. It's like, okay, you want to change this tire. You can, I don't know, think about all these things or think about why it happened, how to avoid it. Like you can just think about it, or you can actually get the tire out of the car and change it, like jack it up and change it. So it's just about being practical, and being in that mindset for 4.5 years breeds that into you. So yeah, I'd say leadership, problem solving, and I'd say the third one, which was always kind of innate in me, but really came out and was really solidified and consciously brought to mind, was like caring for others and the desire to help others. I think through high school, I mainly realized that. I don't know. I'm sure everyone talked to everyone about their problems, but for like a lot of people would message me about their problems, I would be that kind of guy that would talk to people about their problems and what they're going through. It never felt like work to me. It never felt like I didn't want to be there for them. I genuinely love just talking to people about their problems and trying to help them. I find it so interesting. I find it very very beneficial for me and for them. Like they get something out of it, and I feel great doing it. I learn about people doing it. So I'd say probably those three things, like the solidification, or is that even a word?
It is today.
Yeah, it is today. Solidification that I like genuinely care and want to help people, leadership and problem solving.
Yeah, right. And like obviously now moving to post-teen, so now into young adulthood, which is the stage you're in now, like 18 to this current moment. You were still finishing your apprenticeship through that time. You'd started at late teens and then now you finished it. What sort of lessons have you taken from your teens, and do you feel like you apply the most? It doesn't have to be those three. It's like, what are you applying the most today?
What am I applying the most today? These are freaking really good questions. From my late teens and that time, probably like just gonna come back to problem solving. That's really a good thing.
How do you think you apply it?
I think I apply it in the day-to-day on a small scale. If I'm very good at knowing how I feel and just working out why I feel like it. I never accept the outcome of feeling. Like if I'm feeling down or bad, it's not like, oh, it's okay, it's just one of those days. It's like, no, why? What have I done to cause this? Because my actions, will impact my feelings. So I can break down whether it's, I saw someone like, okay, this is a great example. I love watching MMA. If I'm watching an MMA fight and the fighter I love loses, like I'm aware that will make me feel sad. I'm aware of the feelings that will come with that. So, and I don't want to feel sad. So I'm getting better at like removing myself from that. So when it is fight day, I'm like, I really want them to win, but I also get comfortable with the idea of if they don't win, I'm like, I'm not going to let that truly affect me or my day or my week. Like I'll feel it in the moment. No doubt I'm going to feel a bit sad, but I don't let it really impact me. So I'm just very aware of myself and what causes my feelings.
And if you're someone who watches MMA, you know that's a
anyone
massive skill to have.
Anyone that watches sport.
Oh, like you just feel so shit when your team loses or whatever. But that's what I was sort of getting at, and I wanted you to sort of verbalize is the fact that you've learned these skills across your teenagehood where you didn't necessarily see what they were worth when you were doing them, but now that you're actually practicing them in the real world, you really see the benefits. Like you, from what I see from an outsider perspective, you're very good at problem solving, but on like all scales, like short, medium, long term. Like you can problem solve in like, you can take a really objective approach no matter what emotion is involved. Whether that be, I'm confident you would deal with death really well. I'm really confident you would deal with death because I feel like you wouldn't hide away from it or shy from it. You'd really dive deep into it because you know that that's how you're going to answer your feelings. I think we've talked about this, but like the Andrew Huberman story when he was deep diving and he almost like lost air, long story short, like almost lost air, but somehow got the air for the tank and he couldn't get to sleep that next night and he knew the only way to do it was to deal with it, was to dive deeper into it. And that's like, I feel like I see you apply that all the time. It's like just to dive in, don't shy away from it. Or even if you do shy away from things, I feel like you're so honest and you verbalize it. Just being accountable, and that's the type of stuff we want to talk about. But it's just so awesome that you doing the things you did and taking the steps you do as a teenager, like actually, in school they're like, oh, you're going to need this in the future, and it may be a practical skill. It's like these skills are the things we need in the future, like things like accountability, pressure, like dealing with pressure, dealing with competitiveness. All these things that you've mentioned are just they're microcosms of what we're going to deal with in making decisions later on. And it's just so sick to know you from a teenager and know you go through, like, especially through your apprenticeship and problem solving, like you just mentioned, but just seeing you now like apply that. And even with our stuff, like we both made like a big change in what we were doing day to day, like flipped it on its head to now do this stuff and try and pursue this. And that's problem solving in itself. Like you were faced with this idea or this feeling you had or whatever, and you've gone objectively, how am I going to approach this? And that literally directly comes from your skills you've learned as a teen. I just think that's so awesome. And I do see that in you all the time. So it's something I really wanted to talk about. Do you feel like there's any other skills that you put forward or?
I'd say I'm good at not being swayed by like external pressures. I'm sure to some extent, like I'm impacted and everyone is to an extent, but
because we function off other humans, so it's going to happen at some point. But
I've always been really good at not succumbing to peer pressure and staying true to myself and what I want to do. Again, there's been times I've swayed and like I'm not perfect, but for the most part, going to a public school, like drinking drugs, that's a very strong culture. But I always found a way to resist it. And like when I decided to drink for the first time, yes, I told myself, okay, like I want to drink now. How much of that was pressure? Probably a lot, because if I went to a school where that wasn't the culture, I probably wouldn't have done it. So I can't say I'm amazing at it, but people were drinking like 13, 14 years old, 12 years old even. And I just, again, like kids are so mean. It was always like, oh, why don't you drink? Like you're a loser, like drink, come on, constantly trying to get you to drink and do it. But I was just really good at saying, no, I don't want to, not feeling like I had to justify my decisions to these people. It was like, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't need to answer to you. So this is as far as the conversation goes. I'm just not drinking.
So self-confidence almost?
Yeah, confidence in myself and just like, I don't know, being able to stand 10 toes deep in my decisions and my beliefs. I've always been good at that. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, another thing as well. In that, I found in the pressure, in the heat of the moment, I've found I've always been able to find like a form of clarity. You know, when people are going through pain, they tend to just not feel it and just react on it. Like through a breakup, for example, a lot of people will break up and then that you're almost like, I always see it like you're at a crossroads. You can go one of two ways. You can either go the way where it's like sitting with that pain, dealing with the pain and growing and learning in the pain, or you can just shy away from it and go out and get drunk and have lustful experiences and just do a bunch of things that are distracting you from that pain. And I find like a lot of people just take that route. But like, for instance, when I went through my breakup, I literally 20 minutes after, I was crying walking home, and it was at night, and I just remember being like I was saying a prayer, and I was just like, I know right now that there's two ways I can go about this. I can either go that route that's going to lead me into just like more misery, more depression, and, you know, further away from where I actually want to be. I can utilize this pain, sit with it, go home, journal, write about it, get up knowing it's going to be painful, but like keep getting up, keep chasing it, and eventually the pain will go away, and I will reap like a massive field of harvest from this.
Wow.
And it's that conscious decision, it's that clarity in that pain. I don't know what it is, but I don't know if other people have this clarity in that pain, but I always find in the midst of the pain, I always get this really clear sense of clarity where I'm like, all right, there's two ways I can go about this, and I always choose the better way.
The hard road, the longer road.
The harder road, the longer road, because it's going to give me more.
Yeah, definitely. So now, like, we've sort of touched on it, and obviously like throughout the pods and stuff like that, but we've taken this step to move along like a different journey. And like, what has the last 12 months been like for you? Because it's pretty much 12 months from when we initially discussed doing this. It's been about 12 months or 13 months, 12 to 13 months.
Yeah, super interesting.
It feels like it's been forever.
We're September, holy moly. Okay, this is wild. So last year this time, we were 25 days out from doing a triathlon.
Whoa. Oh, shit. Forgot about that.
So,
yeah.
Which is just about the time you bought your bike.
No, I literally got a Google memory. It was like a week ago.
That's wild. But yeah, my mindset here was I had like a lot of people around me telling me that I shouldn't be a mechanic. Not people within the space, just friends that knew me and knew like the way I think and the way that I kind of behave. And none of that was speaking mechanic to them. And I knew that I wasn't going to be a mechanic forever. I just wasn't sure what I was going to do. And like, I didn't want to make a rushed decision. I think the worst thing you can do is when you feel a certain way, like if you've lost desire to, I don't know, be a garbage man, I don't think you should just step out and do something else just because you don't want to do that. I think there's value in like riding out those tough times to then find what you actually want to do.
Yeah, instead of desperately looking for something that's going to cause less boredom, less pain.
Just wait in it. Be like, it's okay, I can be here, and then find what you really want to do.
There's definitely multiple benefits in that.
I was at a point where I'd kind of voiced like, my mind is, like last year, I was like, my mind is set on September 26th, triathlon day. After that, then I'm going to figure it out. Like, then I'll think about leaving or whatever it is. And it was after the tri that one of my friends said to me, bro, it's September, like it's the start of October now. You're still a mechanic. What are you doing? Like, when are things changing? And I was like, yes, I don't want to be here, but I just want you to know that I'm not going to make a decision just because I don't want to be here. Like, I'm not going to leave just because I don't want to be here. I'm going to wait until like I'm guided, until I've found something where I'm meant to be. And that's when I'll move. And that didn't end up happening until December, when I was out celebrating like my friend's uni graduation, and we're at dinner, and I was talking to one of my mates, and he was saying how like Bunnings needs employees. And right around that time, like I'd been kind of sitting in this thought of wanting to leave for a few months now, and I knew what I wanted, and it was a mindless job where I could just go and do work, take on no responsibility, and allow my mind to think and get creative. And when he said they needed employees, I was like, can I get a job? Do you think that would work? And he was like, man, you'd be perfect. We spoke about what the job is, and it was exactly what I wanted. So I applied, got the job, left my mechanic job, and started working at Bunnings, and it was and is exactly what I've needed.
Yeah, that's perfect. So the last 12 months for you has sort of been like changing that job, going into that new role, and then spending a lot of time by yourself and like on your own time.
Yeah. So it's been good. It's been, again, not conforming to social pressures has been something I've thrived at. Most people, when I told that I was leaving mechanics to go work at Bunnings, just laugh at me. They say like, what the hell are you doing? That's the dumbest thing ever. You've just spent, 4 years getting this certification, and then you're going to leave and use it and go work for less money doing a job that anyone could do. Like, it just makes no sense in so many people's minds. But again, I'm not doing this for somebody else. I'm doing it for myself. I know why I'm doing it. It makes complete sense in my mind. So I have 100% confidence in going and doing it. And it never fazed me. Like, there's never been a point of like, oh, should I not have done it? Should I have stayed where everyone told me to stay? Like, no, I knew I didn't want to do it, so I'm going to leave and go and do what I want to do. And the transition's been interesting. It's been good. It's been great. It's been the best thing ever. The past 8 months since leaving mechanics has been a really good time. Like, we've started the pod, we've been really consistent with it, which I'm happy about. A bunch of new like endeavors have popped up, which I absolutely love, and it's just wild knowing all of 8-9 months ago I was working 40 plus hours a week as a mechanic with none of the stuff coming up, to now working 2-3 days a week at Bunnings, and all of these things are coming my way, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah. Of all the current endeavors that you're sort of speaking on, how much of, and like a lot of what we're doing is like obviously talking about stuff, and we want people to listen and see if like other people get some insight off that. It's very like, it's a bit of a selfless thing. How are you finding sort of now doing stuff for you? Because you're being a lot more selfish with your time. It's like you're not working for someone, you're working for yourself. How are you finding the balance between doing selfless work almost, and it's actually a selfish act because you're working for yourself? Like, are you finding, how are you finding doing selfish work? Like having a lot of time to yourself? Are you
just doing the stuff we're doing?
Yeah.
Oh, great. I think the interesting challenge, I guess, it poses is there's no motivator. Like, obviously, you have your partner, like I have you, which is great. And with the Acuna stuff, I have Pat, which is also awesome. But it's not as strong as like a boss. It's not as strong as like losing your job. Like, there's no real heavy consequences, other than like, we're just not going to make it. And the thing is, you can justify that in so many ways. Like, you can really let yourself off and be like, oh, do it tomorrow. Like, your time will come and it's fine. Especially when there's no money. Like, we have no money coming in from this stuff, so it's easy to justify not doing the work. But like, it has been challenging, I would say. It's been an easier motivator to get up to go to mechanics when I didn't want to, because I'm like, I have to. Like, I have to show up. It's my job. If I don't, I'm going to get in trouble. Whereas this stuff, it's like, I don't have to actually do the work.
No.
Like, I don't have to. It's like, I'd be disappointed in myself. You'd be disappointed in me. But it's just disappointment.
Yeah.
So
there's no actual like financial consequences.
exactly.
Well, at this point in time.
Yeah. So it has been interesting. But at the same time, it's so much easier to get up and do this work. I woke up this morning with the biggest smile on my face. Like, this is my freaking work. This is wild. I'm going to come
Meet
This
up
is
with
the
you.
shit I'm putting effort into. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So it's, in a way, like, some days it can be harder to get up and get out of bed and motivate yourself. But on the other hand, it is so much better knowing like I'm actually doing something I believe in. Like, yes, I believe in being a mechanic. It's a great job. Everyone has a car and needs a car. But this is stuff I'm passionate about. Like, my old boss, Andy, always said this to me. He's like, you seem to me like you like working on cars, but you love talking with people. Like, by the end of it, it was almost, I was more invested in like connecting and trying to better the people's lives that I was surrounded with, like my work colleagues, versus working and fixing the cars that I was working on. And Andy noticed that within me, which is clearly just shows like that's where like I'm meant to be, if you will.
That is nuts that you say that, because for me, like, that is the exact same thing. Like, the exact same thing. And I've never thought of it like that. Like, this is like opening my mind to that. I've never thought of it like that. It's like you're actually there. Your job description is doing the cars and fixing the cars and whatnot. But you're actually, what's motivating you almost, and you might not even be that aware of it. You might be to an extent, but your actual job, what you're practicing, is just helping these people. And that's what you liked more, is talking to those people, helping them. That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, the past 12 months have been wildly awesome. Very, very beneficial. Lots of change, lots of growth, and just I'm excited. I'm just excited to build something that's mine and like ours. I've never had issues working for the man. Like, it's never been something I've been like, oh, I hate working for someone. I quite like it, but I just would so much rather have the reins in my hands and, you know, build something I want to build.
In 10 years, what dream will you be practicing?
So as in, what will I bring to fruition within 10 years or in 10 years? 10 years, I'll be 32. Wow. It's a long way away. Hard to say. Like, my answer to this is, you can never really predict the future, so for me to speak on this would be dumb, but for the sake of it, and I think it's always good to think about it, 10 years, 32, the dream I want to be practicing is internationally, not internationally recognized. Like, I don't want to have fame, like, that's not something I chase, but international, like, you could probably help me with this word, like international recognition, where it's not fame, but it's like I can just go places and do things and people like believe in the product.
Okay, it's almost like you have a sense of freedom in your ability to do what you do.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to do what you do, but in a free sense.
I want to establish that credibility. Like, I like the idea, because again,
Like,
credibility is the right
I
word.
like-
I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg comes to Australia and starts some program. Everyone's going to do it or listen to him because it's Mark Zuckerberg, because of everything he's done. He's credible. You know, Kyle and Josh go over to America and try to start something. Maybe one or two people listen, but no one knows who we are. We haven't done anything worthy of them listening.
You want to establish that credibility.
I want to establish that credibility, and I want to be able to go places around the world and help people and implement like positive change. So yeah, in 10 years, that's where we'll be.
Credibility. Dude, I love it. I think we wrap it up there.
Yeah.
That's been you. It's been good to get to know you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that was sick.
It's interesting. It was good reflection. I just want to say as well, like, a lot of the answers you give in these moments aren't necessarily, like, they're truthful, obviously, because you speak them, but there's more to it. Like, don't think that this is the depths. You know, even as we were talking, other memories from high school were popping up. I'm like, oh, that's funny, I should say that. But like, I said what I said because they were good memories.
Definitely.
I've had other good memories.
I was also going to give that disclaimer too. So it's like, in this time, we've probably spoken, I don't know how long for, but like maybe an hour just over. It's like, that's an hour and a half of conversation. I always talk about, like, when people go on like talk shows and stuff, it's like 10 minutes. Like, you don't know the person at all. In this hour, you still do not know us at all. You know what I mean? So it's just sort of like a glimpse into what, like how we've gotten to this point, at least.
It's a timeline review.
Yeah.
I think it's beneficial because, again, you mentioned it at the start, but all the podcasters I listen to, all the people I look up to in life, I just want to know more. Like David Goggins, Nims Purja, Cameron Haynes, Matthew McConaughey, Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson. I want to know their stories. I want to know everything about them. So, like, that's why I'm excited when they release books, because I'm like, all right, this is great insight. This is like from their mouth, like their brain to paper, this is them. And it's just more. And like, I want to know more. I want Joe Rogan to release a book so I can learn more about him. And I'm not saying that our listeners have this desire to know more, but I do like the idea of having an episode like this, because maybe one day one person thinks, oh, I wonder what they did when they were younger. I wonder what their path was. So this is a bit of insight.
Definitely, 100%. I'm very happy with it, but we'll see you in the next one. Peace out.
Peace.